Welcome back to the morning show here at the Rise News. I'm Rafai Oseni. With continuous quality filmmaking in Nigeria, watching movies in cinemas has not only come to stay, but it's now taking a new dimension for profit-making by film producers. Notable among these films that have graced the screen of the Nigerian cinemas in recent times are Chief Daddy.
His Chief Daddy will give us the money.
Yes.
Do you know this man said we should write anything we want for Christmas?
What's our good money, you know?
The Wedding Party is another one that has really made waves.
Get up here! It's my wedding day!
Oh, God.
Don't hate the player, just hate the game.
Well, this player is getting married today.
Son of Lady Obianuju Onwochei.
That is correct.
And recently, Bling Lagosian.
Mommy is throwing a birthday party this year.
I'm thinking Nigerian paradise. Oh, and you, my beautiful goddess, will be Yemoja, coral everywhere. I like that.
However, it is one thing to produce a film and have it screened in a cinema. Another thing entirely is to rake in the cash flow from the box office. I mean, the motive of every business is to make profit. In Nigeria, according to Francis Onwochei, a former director, Audiovisual Rights Society of Nigeria, and former secretary, Nigerian Independent Television Producers Association of Nigeria, believes that 90% of the films produced this year that made it to the Nigerian cinemas did not make profit as expected by film producers. So, let's talk about this.
Yes, I mean, go ahead.
Making profit from Nigerian films. Somebody will say, I mean, the first big crossover Nigerian film that made profit was 30 Days in Atlanta. I mean, that was the first film that really told us that, oh, it could be done. Prior to that time, we had not had big movies like that. And he ran on the sequel, but then it looks as though it fizzled out. And then the Wedding Party franchise came. It's fizzled out. Bling Lagosian, is there going to be a sequel? What is happening?
It's a major concern for every motion picture practitioners, particularly producers, because at the end of the day, the bulk falls on them. I say that all the noble possibilities are lost when a producer does not make money from his film. During the time that DVD was in vogue, producers make money. I mean, if you invest, say, for example, 5 million on a project and you make 10 million, you will say you've made profit because you have seen it.
But how did you make profit even when DVDs were in vogue? Because of piracy? I mean, piracy was rife too.
There was piracy, absolute piracy. But we were still making profit in spite of the obvious challenges in piracy. But now, come over, even at that time, Oswafia in London made absolutely fantastic a profit. At that time, it was the highest grossing ever before the emergence, introduction of cinema. Now, straight forward to cinemas, you have rightly mentioned that 30 Days in Atlanta made brilliant impact, yes. And in fact, you can see the trail from all of AY's movies, including and not limited to Mo's Wedding Party 1 and 2. And you have mentioned Bling Lagosian. What I'll tell you about these two films is that you can say most of the titles from Mo, they have made profit. But Mo is just one producer out of 100. So,
sorry to cut you, but Mo got burnt. You know, she experimented with 50. Didn't catch the market.
50 made its impact.
But it didn't make money.
Well, it did make money, but producers have different ways that you can make money, especially when you are a producer of a certain class of Mo, where you can make money from private placements, make money from private screenings, make money from different levels of support from corporate organizations. But we are very critical about focusing on income from the cinemas. So yes, it didn't make so much money. Wedding Party made a lot of money because it was a collaborative venture. But outside that, in this year, in fact, I can take it back to last year. How many films can you say in Nigeria that's made profit? The Bling Lagosians you talk about, Bling Lagosians Currently, now it's probably making 120 million. Now, a producer will not take home, at the max, you'll take home 40% of whatever the entire box office returns. So if you have made the film and then production and publicity cost you about 50 million, and your entire gross of box office is 120 million, what is 40% of 120 million? You are probably just at the verge of meeting your cost. So it's a major disappointment for producers. It's a big fear. Why we still continue to make films is what I still get concerned about.
Well, the question is, why we still continue to make films? Films will always be made in every economy, either way, for as a level of... Is it because the people are not coming out? But, the people are still churning in big numbers with the likes of Wakanda, with the likes of other productions. Is it that we are not making the stories to entice them? Or is it that the run-to genre is fast-fading? No, high urban comedy, love story mixed with comedy. Because you can pretty much reel out a script in Nigeria in the next 2-3 minutes and you know what will make box office. Very good comedy. I can even mention the name of the actors. Should I go ahead? Put a Sophia, put a Patience Zokwa in as parents, and then whip a love story around it, put some egalitarian Lagos society, put a black Ferrari in it, 2 buildings shot in Ikoyi. And that could make you over 100 in box office.
I'm clapping for you. Because, yes, whereas you may have said it as a joke, but that can make an absolutely brilliant box office. Yeah. However, the engineering of films in the cinemas are far different from what we are about here. Nigerians like movies, but like I always talk about the mechanics, how much money comes from the cinemas. And that's the issue for me, and I can point you a bit into what can become the solutions. There are not enough screens in the Nigerian cinemas. First, there are not enough cinemas per inch for people who are around, and then even the cinemas, there are not enough screens to satisfy the yawning audience. You'll find that people from Ikorodu, where you have large populations, do not have where to go when they want to see a film in the cinemas. They will have to come all the way to, say, Lekki. People living in Badagry will have to find their way to Festac. People living in Ikorodu will have to find their way to Maryland and all of that. So if we have an environment where you have cinemas spread out in these places, they don't have to be high-quality top cinemas. They could even be cottage cinemas. But then people will have to pay. Pricing is important also. People will pay and go and see these movies. When we make comparisons with what happens in America and what happens in India and South Africa, I just have a laugh, because when you compute how many cinemas, how many screens per inch to satisfy the audience, then you'll know that we have not started at all. We do not have up to 200 screens in Nigeria. Whereas in India, you have over 3,000 screens. And so you cannot move.
For a population of 1 billion?
Well, don't forget that their economy is also not as very exciting. There are poor people in India. But 3,000 screens, and compared to what you have, 200, you don't have up to 200 screens. I'm just...
But what you should also look at, the investment for getting a screen is not that easy. For you to get a screen in a location, it sets you back nothing less than 5, 10, 15, or even more million naira.
Okay, maybe more.
Even close to $1 million.
But the point to be noted is that these are areas where entrepreneurs can become important in the entire value chain. We have people who have money. Let's just put it that way. And then a lot of them will rather invest maybe outside Nigeria and all these other places. But we keep saying that we want to support the environment. We want to support the industry. These are ways that people will support the industry. These are ways that government can even attract investors, both within and outside. We're listening to the president today or yesterday, he was talking about, all right, Nigeria being a great environment where people can, but nobody is talking about the motion picture, the soft economy. How do we develop that? All of these things you are seeing are things that's generated from, struggle, the pains of independence. I mean, we independent producers, we do everything from beginning to the end, including and not limited to even having cinemas. So when big organizations, big investment people come to invest in distribution, you can make a whole load of money. That's the point I'm trying to make.
But how viable is the distribution business? A lot of these big investors will ask. I mean, because if the numbers do make sense, people will put your money in it. Why are people putting money in Hollywood? Because they know the numbers make sense. Because they know the distribution will be done properly. So 1 or 2 weeks of release, you will definitely get your money back.
In fact.
But what are the distribution channels? We have big problems of piracy. We have big problems here. I mean, take, for instance, I was driving to the cinema the other day. The movie I was about going to watch in the cinema was being sold in traffic leading up to the cinema.
It's actually a major disappointment, but piracy is not limited to Nigeria. All over the world, they suffer piracy. Why you find that films in Hollywood and so many other places, they make profit on the first weekend of release. I'm talking about the first Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they can make profit. And why is that? The simple reason is that so many people can go and see the films that weekend that it opens. Now, we're back in Nigeria. So even if so many people want to come and see the film, where are the screens to satisfy them? So the economics, you have to, investors have to think through it. The cinema owners are making money.
But it's the same way everywhere in the world. I mean, so I'll give you instances of England. I mean, I stayed in England, so I'll give you instances of England. To still get to cinema is still very in and far between. I mean, what are the biggest cinemas? Odeon in central London, Leicester Square. For instance, I stay around the Bexley Heath area. For you to be able to get to cinema, you have to go as far as places like Charlton. So it's not spread everywhere. And there are people in places like Belvedere that still have to travel all the way. I mean, I had a friend who schooled in Bangor. Bangor is the western part of Wales. She said throughout that time there was no cinema. There was no cinema in that area. So it's still spread because the dynamics of getting a cinema and getting a big screen is not that easy anywhere.
Good.
So will the silver bullet be what Herbert Ogunde used to do back in the days, traveling theater? We'll come back and talk about this another prospect even more right here on The Morning Show. Right, still The Morning Show here on Arise News, and we're talking to Francis Onwochei, former director of Audiovisual Rights Society of Nigeria. We're talking about, having a silver bullet as regards having cinemas everywhere and the spread. And I was talking about England, so I was like, for instance, if you lived in Bexley Heath area, like I did, you have to go to places as far as Blue Water, and that Blue Water, that's Kent, obviously, to be able to see a movie. So it's not spread. I mean, there are quite lots and lots of distance you have to cover. But I'm saying, the traveling theater, the likes Alberto Ogunde did, because a lot of people don't give him credit enough. It's about one of the most successful film producers in this country that ever lived. The first person that really started making money from his films was Herbert Ogunde, and he wouldn't show it for you for free. And he'll travel, make everything, fix the cinema, move in cinema, things like that. Is this something we can learn from?
I mean, Herbert Ogunde and a few others, the progenitors of Nigerian cinemas. And of course, you cannot talk about the emergence and growth, development of the environment without giving them credit. But what you also have to identify is that at that time, how many Herbert Ogundes did you have? How many other things are taking people's time? So there was Ogunde, maybe Olabalogun, and 1 or 2 others making films, and everybody wanted to come and see the films. But now you have like 100 Herbert Ogundes, yeah. You have newspapers that's taking people's time. You have television. You have social media. You have different televisions, maybe more than 42 channels. At the time you're talking about maybe 1 or 2 stations in Nigeria. So the call for people's time and attention is huge now. At that time, even as a young boy, I go to the cinemas, I go to National Theatre, and I saw almost all of Ogunde's titles. By the way, I grew in the cinema environment. My father's house.
Because you lived in the Gomu?
How did you get that?
You lived in the Gomu area.
Yeah. I actually started from Idioru, and just 1 stone through to my father's house, you had the Jebako cinema. So we were the young boys going to buy cigarettes and all of that for the big boys who run the cinema. So I started my engagement then, and up till now, I'm still very critically engaged with cinema. And then, of course, we moved to Igomu. That's a walking distance to the National Theatre. And National Theatre and a few of the other super cinemas and Surulere are the places where you see films.
But also, just a little historical slip on this. We had a lot of cinemas then. We had the Penn Cinema. We had the Casino Cinema that was during the Civil War. We had the Jabago Cinema, you talked about. And we had, small cinemas.
Had them on the island. They were controlled by Lebanese, by foreigners.
And they were not big-budgeted cinema.
No.
They were just a small place in you.
But what was the content? They were foreign content.
Indian movies.
Indian movies, sometimes movies from China, I Love in Tokyo. Maybe that was Chinese film, but Indian movies predominantly. But people still went to...
But these cinemas were spread across. What happened now? Because remember the likes, even people that grew up in Ibadan, there's a place called Queen Cinema.
Yep.
It was
those places have turned to churches, and they use them for wedding ceremonies and all of that. But these were predominantly because of the indigenization decree. I think at that time, the ruling government wanted Nigerians to also own part of the big stakes. So that we can have a step into the business of distribution, which was important, but perhaps wrongly executed, because now those places that you mentioned that could form cottage cinemas, and that's why I'm talking about cottage cinemas. They don't have to be big, they don't have to be huge like Film One, like Silverbird, like Genesis. No. Most of these cinemas that you are talking about, they are cottage cinemas. So if you cannot pay 1,500 to go and see the Silverbird, you can pay 500 and still see some of these films. But you will not have the luxury of maybe very great cooling system, big-time security for your person and your cars and all of that. But however, what I'm trying to say is that we do need some of these cottage cinemas to cater for people who are not able to easily make it to Silverbird, to Film One, to Genesis.
I hear, a little bit tells me that a lot of the producers are crying. The distribution mechanism is still very shark-like in this country. No offense to the big distribution channels. What's your take on this? Still very shark-like.
All producers, they have the shortest end of the stick. The calculation when you have your meetings with your exhibitors is that by the time they take away the government taxes, which is okay and all of that, the 20% is already off. So you are struggling for 80% from get-go. Not one kobo has come in. So say you make a moderate budget film of, say, 30 million, including publicity. Your film must make 100 million before you talk about getting even, not to talk about making profit. If you take the risk of extending your expense, both publicity and advertising and production, to 50 million, then you are talking about your film must make 150 million before you talk about making profit. Now, go back to the last 2 years. How many films? How many of those films have broken even? How many? I challenge anyone to come and say, from the cinemas, you have made profit from your film. Maybe bling negotiations at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, when they begin to share their incomes, you'll find that the producer has not critically made money from her film. That's Bolanle Austin Peters of bling negotiations. It's a critical problem in our environment. Well, more, at the time Wedding Party came on, you'll find that you'll read in every paper, Memo has made 300 and something million, 400 and something million. At that time, there is a mechanism, ComScore, which they used to calculate incomes from the cinema. The cinemas in Nigeria have not started using ComScore. ComScore, you be anywhere in Nigeria, it will tell you, how much did you make today? So it's not just to come and churn out, I made 1 billion, I made 500 million, so that you can appear big.
So shouldn't Nigerian Film and Censors Board be part of, I know it's not really their role because it's just for censoring of the movie and ratification of the movie and rating the movie. But shouldn't we even have an independent association that talks about the business of movie itself? Maybe a government-regulated association, maybe like a ComScore board. a government movie revenue board?
Well, this assignment really, and you have said it rightly, is not the main concern of Film and Classification Board. If we had a proper environment, this will be dealt with by a film commission. A film commission can emerge from the Nigerian Film Corporation and maybe some departments of Nigerian Film and Video Censorship Board. If we had MOPICON, for instance, that's the Motion Picture Practitioners Council, which can look into, that's why organizations like that are set up, and it's government regulated, some representatives of government, they can look into all of the concerns, and that's where you have government responsibility coming into place now. So when we keep saying government, we don't say come and do any critical thing, but set some things in motion so that when a part of an industry, any industry for that matter, if you talk about maritime, of course there's a maritime law. There are things guiding maritime. If you talk about petroleum, there are organizations guiding the regulations there. So the entertainment environment ought to also have interventions and concerns from government agencies that will determine some of the things that can become useful in the entire environment for the benefit of practitioners and even the government in itself.
So as we start to wrap this up, the way forward. Way forward real quickly.
Real quick, I think I've identified when I was talking about MOPICON. There is the Motion Picture Practitioners Council, where government must state things that will guide ethics of the profession, ethics even amongst practitioners and with other corporate organizations, so that if I do anything out of tune, for instance, you have a place as an investor to run to and say, hey, look, something that can enforce discipline, something that can enforce, practice regulations. And we're not talking about only actors now. It will deal with producers, directors, exhibitors, distributors, so long as one way or the other you are engaged in the motion picture environment, that will guide you. And then it begins to help channel and create an open possibilities. Then investors, corporate organizations will have an opportunity to also to read up things and know these are areas of intervention that you can use to support the industry.
Well, actually, a very big thank you for being here. Definitely we'll still have you to talk about this even more. That brings us to the end of the show today. I'm Rufai Hosseini. Thanks for watching from our team here in Lagos. Enjoy the rest of your morning and, of course, the rest of your day. Goodbye.